This is a special edition of our broadcast tonight. The Prime Minister of India has shrunk the world since his aggressive foreign policy moves require him to trot around the globe often. Days after his government completes 3 years in office, he is all set to travel to 4 key countries: Russia, Germany, France and Spain. Well, the primary aim seems to bolster counter-terrorism cooperation with these countries and, more importantly, invite investments in India. Over the next half hour, we take a look at what India can look out for when the Prime Minister meets heads of states of these nations. In fact, on Monday, Prime Minister Modi will land in Germany at the start of his 4-nation tour that includes talks with Germany, Spain, France and Russia. And the Ministry of External Affairs sources say that the focus will be to bolster counter-terrorism cooperation with these nations and investments, as pointed out earlier. Starting Monday, the Prime Minister will hold meetings with Germany's Angela Merkel. He will also visit Spain on the 30th of May after he leaves Germany. On Wednesday, he will arrive in Moscow for a 3-day visit and participate in the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. He will visit France on the 2nd and 3rd of June and is likely to discuss terrorism and nuclear cooperation with the newly elected Emmanuel Macron. Experts point out that India is likely to raise its concerns about war with Russia and Germany and also focus on building alliances against international terror. EU-India trade is likely to get a boost as well after that visit. In fact, joining me live on the broadcast this evening is Dr. Marcus Pindua. He's the federal correspondent of Deutschland Radio. He joins me live from Berlin. Padma Rao, WION senior editor, is also live with us from New Delhi. In fact, Padma, if I can start with you very quickly, what do you think are the key issues, or let me put it like that, which one of these countries do you think will be the most important in terms of India and what it wants from these countries?
Well, I would say off the top of my head, France, Germany and Russia, the St. Petersburg summit. Let me start with Germany. There are some sticking points there. As far as the representation of Germany in India is concerned, and I speak of the past 35 years, have been a correspondent for the leading German media, as you know, in India. And I know that they put in a lot of hard work and they are, very gung-ho and upbeat about India. But the problem, the sticking point is always when they take these ideas back, when they, when they see what's happening in India, take it back, and then it gets stuck somewhere in Parliament or, because of other considerations. Let's not fool ourselves. India is not exactly a household name in Germany except for Bollywood and Shah Rukh Khan. But on the other hand, I have been speaking to sources in Berlin, and they tell me that, they're saying, I'll give you some very quick bullet points. Germany is very keen for India to play a global strategic role, whatever that means.
Right.
India should tread very carefully there because, Germany, through the NATO and even otherwise, is involved through its partnership with the United States in various conflict areas. We're already with the United Nations peacekeeping groups, so we'd have to tread carefully there.
Right.
Then we've got, Germany always says that India and Germany are ideal partners, all right, but and that that they want to cooperate with us in the Indian Ocean, that the country realizes more and more, the defense experts, that that there is this Chinese sprawl in the Indian Ocean. But when the chips are down, Sana, when the chips are down, let's not forget 2 things. There are elections coming up in September in Germany. No German government could commit to anything too extreme as far as defense is concerned from the German public.
Well, Padma, let's quickly get in a view from Dr. Marcus Pindua as well. Thanks so much, Dr. Pindua, for joining us here on the broadcast. I want to start by asking you, let's start with Germany, as Padma started. How does Germany view India? How is India being looked at there?
Well, Padma was absolutely right. It's not a household name, even though Bollywood has a very good name here in Germany. But India and Germany are tied by a number of things. And first and foremost, those are economic relations. German firms put a lot of confidence into the Indian market and the growth of India. And I'm sure that after serving the Prime Minister a good German beer and a schnitzel, Miss Merkel will certainly also push him to come to the negotiating table back again to negotiate the bilateral trade investment agreement that India has been negotiating now for 10 years. The negotiations have come to a still stand since a couple of years, and especially in the climate right now, where we have an American president who is extremely pessimistic and extremely adverse to world trade, I think Ms. Merkel will push the Prime Minister a little towards more leeway in terms of trade.
Okay, point taken. In fact, Shilkant Sharma, former SAARC Secretary General and former diplomat, is also live with us from New Delhi, and so is Pramit Pal Chaudhary, foreign editor of the Hindustan Times. Let me come to you first, Mr. Sharma. Is this an out-and-out business visit, Prime Minister's visit to these foreign nations, or do you see, there are other subjects being touched upon, taken up strongly, like, for instance, the One Belt, One Road being taken up when the Prime Minister meets Vladimir Putin, the Russian president?
No, I don't think, it's a strictly bilateral interest that these visits serve. And to the extent that there are multilateral meetings, there is a multilateral focus. But the One Belt, One Road thing is nowhere on the agenda. So I don't think it should figure. Of course, with Russia, the relationship has a very deep root. So Prime Minister's meeting with Putin will look at the entirety of Indo-Russian bilateral relations, including cooperation, defense matters, nuclear technology, and a whole gamut of issues. So, and similarly with Germany also, it is not the first time that they are meeting. They have met before, and both Chancellor Merkel and Prime Minister Modi know each other. India is very balanced in terms of the flux that is happening in the world today. There is no uncertainty about India's policies under Prime Minister Modi, and that should be a sufficient ground for his interlocutors in Europe,
right,
to be eager to work with India.
All right, Mr. Sharma, I was pointing that out because there have been reports saying that India may actually take this up with Russia, its concerns over China's One Belt, One Road project. But nonetheless, we're also hearing terror is likely to be taken up in the Prime Minister's meetings with several heads of states. Pramit Pal Chaudhary, what do you think is the main focus, the thrust of the Prime Minister's visit in the talks in the upcoming visit? All right, I'm being told Pramit Pal Chaudhary is not through with us. I'm going to go to him in just a bit. But Marcus, coming back to you, we talked about attracting investment. We talked about the immense potential that India and Germany have in terms of trade as well. Is there some sort of skepticism back in Germany as far as dealings with India are concerned? Could that be a hindrance of sorts?
First of all, there's a lot of optimism, and but you also need that on the Indian market. The Indian market is growing. That's what a lot of investors say, German investors say. They say it's a very welcoming field. It's also very complicated. And what investors mainly need is legal stability and accountability. It is not always difficult to navigate, not always easy to navigate the Indian court system, for example, the Indian tax system. And the biggest impediment to more investment is certainly corruption, which is a problem on all government levels, which every German businessman will tell you who has done business in India, as compared to China, they usually say the corruption is the same in China, but in China you only have to bribe one government official. In India you have to bribe several government officials. And that's a big impediment. Other than that, the expectations are large into the Indian market. Plus, we have a natural link to India. India is a democratic country, and that does certainly make a difference. And it's more welcoming and more open, certainly, than other countries are authoritarian regimes.
Right. In fact, having said that, Padma, very quickly, if you can throw some light on, we're hearing that Chancellor Angela Merkel, in fact, might try and persuade the Indian Prime Minister to firmly stand behind the foreign trade agreement. Any hope on that front? What more can you tell us?
Before I go to that, I'd like to point out to Marcus that unless it's a soya vegetarian burger, ich grüße dich, Marcus, he's an old friend of mine, or it's alcohol-free beer, Prime Minister Modi is a teetotaler and he's vegetarian, so he's not likely to go for those allures. But having said that, coming back to your question, there's another thing the speaker before me, the gentleman mentioned...
Mr. Shilkant Sharma, yeah.
Mr. Shilkant Sharma, thank you very much. Mr. Sharma mentioned the OBOR, that it's not likely to come up. I beg to differ because my Berlin sources tell me, because I have been probing, that the OBOR has been rejected by Germany for a single point, which is that it is too much of a top-down approach. They see it as, as all the benefits going to China and not to, they also acknowledge, the Germans also acknowledge the Chinese sprawl in the Indian Ocean, and they are keen to sort of participate. Also the threat, as they see it, from North Korea and from China. So there are a host of defense initiatives there which they would like to take, that is the experts and analysts on the ground who actually know India and absorb India. But unfortunately, what happens all the time in Germany is that when these ideas go back to Parliament in Germany, especially in election year, I don't expect them to make much progress right now.
Right.
So this is where I stand on that issue.
Okay, Mr. Shilkant Sharma, coming to you. When we talk about the trade picture between the EU and India, the figures look very promising. The EU is India's #1 trading partner. 13.5% of India's overall trade happens with the EU. These are the 2015-16 figures, well ahead of China, which stands at 10.8. Also, India is EU's 9th trading partner as of 2016. The numbers are growing year-on-year basis. Having said that, do you think this is perhaps the right time, the right opportunity for the Prime Minister to take the business delegation with him and to pitch India as the investment destination at this time? Do you think the timing is absolutely bang on?
Well, yes, this is after a lapse of time, the Prime Minister has taken a foreign trip, and so it is well considered, and this has been under preparation. The second point I want to make is that, apart from business, you find that last year the figures for FDIs in India were at a peak. We have a very large FDIs in India, which showed the kind of confidence in the Indian economy. And Government of India has done great leap forward with the GST, which is a great reform measure. So there is a certain economic outlook in India, which is the message which is coming out of India, which should be good. And Germany, which is the first point of entry in Europe, Germany and India, they have a lot of commonalities on which they can build upon. I slightly disagree with the point about OBOR, because the thing is that EU they participated at that, and they had reservations. They mentioned that there was lack of transparency and co-ownership. Now, if they did so, they might like to brief PM about it. But PM did not participate, India did not participate. So from India's side, raising that point is the point about the sovereignty of India, where,
right.
Because the whole thing goes through Pakistan occupied Kashmir, which is a disputed area at best, but India claims it is our territory.
Right.
So So that's the reason why India has very strong reservations. And,
all right.
If that comes up for discussion, then naturally Indian team will tell you.
Right. Point taken, Mr. Sharma. In fact, finally, we have Pramit Pal Chaudhary joining us live. Pramit, thanks so much for joining us this evening. I'll start by asking you the same question I've asked all my guests. Which one of these countries, and we've been talking about Germany in length, is going to be the most important in terms of India and India's interests when we see this four-nation visit?
The country that, well, I think Germany was the right choice. Germany is seen as the country where the potential for changing the relationship is the greatest. It's not merely because Germany, of course, is our largest trading partner in Europe, but it is also because the Prime Minister is very determined that his domestic agendas, things like Skill India, Make in India, Digital India, and so on, should be very tightly conform to his foreign policy.
Right.
So he wants, and he likes countries, yeah, exactly, countries that he's looking for countries to partner with him in these type of projects. And right now the United States, Japan, and the United Arab Emirates recently are the three countries that the Prime Minister refers to as the transformational relationships, countries that he sees can contribute greatly, either through government or through the private sector, to a lot of his domestic agenda. The government is now looking at Germany as the fourth potential transformational partner, not only in terms of Skills India, but even now in terms of strategic side. One of the things that until now we've never really had with Germany is a strategic relationship in a genuine sense. Germany has been very focused on Europe. It has these World War hang-ups. And it has not seen Asia as a strategic issue, just as a trade and investment area. But recently there have been a series of very high-level meetings between India and Germany discussing this possibility. And the Germans have accepted that there is a need for what the German officials have been calling middle power cooperation in things like in the Indian Ocean, in developing a maritime agenda.
Right.
Because Germany is a major trading power. It is one of the top 3 trading powers in the world. And like a lot of other countries, it is nervous at the fact that America seems to have lost its way. And it is also wary about China's demands or China's attempts to rework the international maritime structure, especially after the claiming of half the South China Sea.
Right.
So we're actually starting to see the Prime Minister, as I'm sure you've mentioned, will visit Germany twice. And we're hoping to see a major change on the German front.
Absolutely. Pramit, also Mr. Shilkant Sharma, former SAARC Secretary General, and Dr. Marcus Pindu are also on the broadcast with us. So is Padma Rao. We are on senior editor. Just because you joined in a bit late. Mr. Shilkant Sharma, how important in today's world are discussions on counter-terrorism will be, looking at what Europe's gone through in the recent past, India and Europe both sort of dealing with the same menace at this time. Do you think this is one area that's going to be much talked about when the Prime Minister meets with the heads of states of these countries?
Oh, it is bound to be so, because Europe is actually going through convulsions because of terror acts which are happening there, like the latest one in Manchester. It is horrendous, and it, again and again these acts raise the issue to the top, as the British government declared the alert to the highest level, and the spontaneous response to that by Germany and the European partners. India also has been suffering from that. So there is this very common concern between India and Europe, and particularly India and Germany. So it is natural that they discuss these things, and Prime Minister Modi has been insisting on this for the last, ever since he has taken government's charge for last 3 years. He has been raising this issue to the top of the international agenda, and he's been insisting that there should be coordinated international action, sharing of intelligence, so that this whole thing can be, this menace can be, exterminated. So I think that is one area where I would say that it is very natural that these discussions will take place.
Right. Dr. Marcus Pindua, the Berlin December Christmas market attack still very fresh. There was a lot of, and there have been a series of attacks all through Europe, Manchester being the very latest. So perhaps, your thoughts on where India and Germany could take their talks to what level as far as counterterrorism, cooperation is concerned.
Well, certainly the two countries are talking about a cybersecurity agreement right now that has not only to do with terrorism, that can also deal with threats as far as industrial espionage or the intervention of other states like Russia in Europe's elections. We have seen that in France, for example. But I'm sure that we can all profit from each other combating Islamist extremist terrorism. I'm pretty sure that the German security forces can learn from the Indian forces and vice versa. And to add to that point, I mean, to come to a strategic partnership, which is between Germany and India, which is, in my opinion, extremely overdue. We have not been focused on India for a very long time, and I think that was a big mistake by German foreign policy. That should be part of a developed and more encompassing relationship like big partners should have. It's not all about manufacturing, even though that's a big part of it, and trade, of course, it's very important. But it should also encompass things like security policy. But when it comes down to it, let's keep all in mind that it's the exchange of people that matters.
Right.
And as much as it's good that that German investors come to India. I think the German government should be much more forthcoming with giving student visas, for example, to Indian students come to our universities.
That's a good point. Padma,
very important.
Padma, would you like to add to that? And then I'm going to come for closing comments. I'm going to take it to Pramit Pal Chaudhary.
Well, there's no doubt that the relationship has escalated, has gathered speed. There's been a delegation a week, from what I understand, in Germany or from India to Germany. There's also been a new subsection has been created in the German Economics Ministry, a desk which is solely devoted to India. And I also hear that they're looking at a €1 billion investment in India's smart cities. So these are all that's the good news. But there is a bit of bad news. As I said, German elections in September are not necessarily bad news from that point of view. But in any country, it is conceivable that, major commitments, especially on the defense front, about which, as Marcus rightly pointed out, the German public is not only clueless about India, but it's also very unaware and it's very stuck to its, as Pramit pointed out, to its post-World War II constitution, which disallows it to sell arms to other countries. Some of that has been overcome in recent years. Germany was an aggressive bidder for the MMRC aircraft deal. The Eurofighters lost out. It's no longer on the horizon.
Right.
The Germans are still, they're still very much hoping to sell, for instance, submarines on a G2G basis. But there are things that are stuck. For instance, the foreign trade agreement that is stuck, that remains stuck between Germany and India. And I tell you frankly, the biggest Achilles heel for Germany in creating any bilateral relationship, whether strategically or economically, is the European Union currently, because that is where the FTA is stuck. And various defense agreements, they're restricted to the parliament in Berlin. And
right.
It really remains to be seen how bold or how ambitious Chancellor Angela Merkel will be over these coming 2 days in Germany when Prime Minister Modi is there.
Absolutely.
But
we'll know soon. Yeah.
He's the best man, Prime Minister Modi, in the right place at the right time. As one of the speakers pointed out, this is a key turning point. And if the Germans don't make it good now, it'll never happen.
All right. And Pramit, what do you have to say, since, we're discussing challenges and promises, one challenge and one promise as far as this upcoming visit is concerned?
See, what's going to be happening now between India and the European Union is that we have until now the point of contact for most of what we did diplomatically with the European Union has been Great Britain. Great Britain now is almost certain to be leaving, is now leaving or preparing to leave the European Union. So India needs to now rework its European policy. It's now no longer be able to go to London as its main partner in the European Union on the diplomatic side. Fortunately, we have a situation, which is why Modi will now visit France. He will visit Germany, and for the first time in many years, or perhaps ever, an Indian Prime Minister will visit Spain in an attempt to start to put together a new set of relationships in Europe in preparation for Brexit and the new European Union.
All right. You know, it's clear, and also this visit coming just days after the Modi government completed 3 years in office. This is going to be sort of a new phase for the present government to take India and present it as, you know, an investment opportunity perhaps first in the country. On that note, thanks so much, all of you, Pramit Pal Chaudhary, Mr. Shilkant Sharma, Dr. Marcus Pindwa and Padma Rao. That's all then we have for you on this broadcast. Taking a short break. News and updates continue right here on WION. Don't go anywhere.